And good afternoon. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and publisher of What's Up Newp, and we are here. Some technical difficulties. We're running from a conference with Councilor Segley to the governor's press briefing, and now to this important conversation. I do want to bring Frank up here as we review some stuff. Frank, hello. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good.
Oh, I recognize you. I saw you this morning.
Yes, and a long time no see.
Yeah.
And what I will do is, because these were just announced, and just to try to help you, Frank, and help our listeners, there's more information about this on whatsupnewp.com. Now, the governor's press briefing is still going on, but he has announced a few measures here, and here we go. Effective Monday for 30 days is the executive order. Certainly, it could be extended. Certainly, it could be ended sooner. Number one, indoor venues. You can see there with a capacity of 250 persons or more. Masking will be required of employees and patrons inside venues with a capacity of 250 or more, regardless of vaccination status. And number two, indoor venues, retail, restaurants, venues, assembly. Capacity of fewer than 250, masking or proof of vaccination will be required. And then number three is office-based businesses, manufacturers, other public or private employers. All office-based businesses with indoor operations shall require either masking or proof of vaccination. So over 250, you're required to wear a mask. Under 250 for indoor venues, it is a masking or proof of vaccination. And then office, manufacturers, other public, private employers, it is masking or proof of vaccination. You get that, Frank?
So on number three, there's no size off. It could be an office of two, and you would have to have masking or proof of vaccination.
I will dig more into that. I have one ear in the governor's press briefing and one ear here, so I will let you know. But what we're going to do is there is actually somebody who might have that answer, and our guest today is Mr. Evan Smith. He is the executive director of Discover Newport. Hi, Evan.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Frank. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, Evan. Wonderful tie, Evan.
Thank you. I put it on just for you guys. I wanted to show off my holiday tie.
There you go.
I haven't worn a tie in about 6, maybe 9 months.
Yeah, I haven't worn one in about 6 or 9 years. but that's okay. How are you this morning, this afternoon?
I'm doing well. There's a lot of things to be celebrating right now with family and friends. We're all in the holiday spirit, so grateful for the many blessings that we have.
Have you had an opportunity to listen to or review some of the things that the governor is unveiling this afternoon relative to COVID?
I saw them about 60 seconds before we went live, so I would have to tell you, haven't had a chance to digest them. We were expecting them to come through, but I haven't spent any quality time looking at them yet because all the e-blasts started coming through about 2 minutes ago.
It doesn't sound like for venues and restaurants that it's much of a departure from what it is now, with the exception of there aren't a lot of restaurants or places that are more than 250. And so it sounds like if you're under 250, you either have to show proof of vaccination or be masked.
Yeah, we're back in the indoor season. It's kind of interesting. We're kind of starting this new year the way we started last year. So we've kind of come full circle. But I think people are prepared. People want to get out and enjoy life. And I think they're prepared to take whatever safety precautions and logical common sense action steps are necessary. So I don't anticipate this being a huge hurdle towards business. I think it's the one thing I saw, Frank, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was for 30 days. Was that it was going to be analyzed in 30 days?
I'm not sure. Ryan might have that if he's do you know if that's a 30-day?
The executive order is a 30-day executive order. It starts, those restrictions start Monday. He said the executive order is 30 days. So we certainly know that it could be extended or it could be ended early.
Exactly. So, we go into something like this and, I don't know about you guys, but I always have a mask in my car, a mask in my pocket,
I do.
and so I'm always prepared for either side of that great debate. So here we go back into this, but it's in everyone's best interest. No one wants to become ill. No one wants to overtax the health system. So we don our masks again, and we work towards a better tomorrow.
I get concerned about those who remain defiant and will not mask under any circumstances. I can think of certain individuals in certain situations, and I didn't hear anything about penalties. I don't know how you can enforce it without penalties.
Yeah, that's been a problem, obviously, in a lot of different businesses. It's been a problem in the travel industry with airlines, trains, planes, automobiles. It remains a problem for other employees. It remains a problem for enforcement people. And so I think that we need to all do our part. That's the message, I think, is everybody do their part.
So let's take a look back at 2021. Certainly better than 2020, but not back to normal yet. So did you hear me, Evan?
Say again, please.
Okay, so I want to take a look back at 2021, and it's certainly better than 2020. But has Newport returned to the robust kind of restaurant and tourism industry that it was before the pandemic?
The last year was a hell of a year in many different ways. I think that the upside of this is that people were leaving metropolitan areas in record numbers to go to resort areas, whether it be mountains, lakes, or seashore. And so Newport, Aquidneck Island, coastal Rhode Island, Blythe Island, South County, all did really well in the past year because of that shift in the migration. We did not see that coming. We actually had a fairly robust summer. There was visitation numbers were similar to 2019. The one number that really kind of vaulted up was that hotels had rate escalation where people were paying in some cases twice the rate because the free marketplace would bear it. And so the various different taxes created through the lodging establishment and through food and beverage establishments actually did extremely well in Newport and Bristol County. It did well all along coastal Rhode Island. Our good friends in Providence, unfortunately, did not have that kind of success there on the other side of that fence. But we are very fortunate that as we close the books on 2021, we actually had a pretty good year considering, Frank, you have to remember, we didn't have any international travelers. Right. We didn't have any cruise ships. We had very few conventions. The bus tour market was reduced by probably 80%. So all of this visitation was created really just by vacationers within 3 or 4 hours of Newport because no one was flying. So it was all drive market visitation. But we had a good year, and despite all the mountains we had to climb. So not a bad progress report.
Expectations for 2022?
I think that we're going to make some progress in all of these areas. I think the drive market is going to continue to be strong. I think the airlines are going to make a strong push to get people back in the skies. I know that the cruise ships are trying to sail again this fall. The one market that we really want to jumpstart is business travel. We need midweek conferences. We need conventions and people convening again. So I'm very optimistic that leisure travel will remain strong in 2022. But we need to bring back our business partners, our corporations, our associations, and all other people that convene for meetings, because that's the one area that we want to focus on bringing back up to speed.
I remember years ago, I went to Bryant and their international office, whatever it was, and they talked about companies that were trying to save money by actually instead of doing in-person conferences or business meetings, do it video. Do you think that companies have learned this past year that some of those things that brought people together, they could actually accomplish almost as much through a Zoom meeting?
Yes, I do. I do think that Zoom meetings are here to stay. But I think what's going to happen is the pendulum swang all the way to the right, and while we were doing a Zoom meetings, I think the pendulum will come back into the middle, because people actually do need to see each other. They need to shake hands. And so I don't think we're going to remain, from a percentage standpoint, as high as we were in 2021 on Zoom meetings. Zoom meetings will certainly stay strong. But I do think that there will be a correction back to a balance of in-person and Zoom.
I saw in a lot of different places this past year, maybe more than I've seen before, maybe I was just more aware of it, that Newport was mentioned as among those premier vacation destinations, and particularly for people who were in the drive market, if you will. Did you feel that there was more mention, and if so, whether that's something that's going to be really beneficial moving forward?
The recent accolades are part of a scrapbook of great accolades of this travel destination. The destination's been evolving for decades, if not 100 years. Its current status is really due to the hard work of many public sector and private sector investors who have worked hard to help shape and sculpt this destination to be what it is. I think that as we look at these types of accolades, like the Travel and Leisure accolade or others, certainly they give readers a certain confidence and a certain expectation of excellence, a certain expectation of what to expect in terms of travel experiences. And I believe that Newport, Quidnick Island, do a wonderful job in delivering kind of on a travel promise. Sometimes you go on vacation and your vacation didn't live up to your expectations. I believe that because of the diversity of so many things to do here, that people's expectations are actually exceeded. So when people leave here, they came with a certain benchmark of expectations. And I think that, due in large part to the thousands of employees that we have in lodging, attraction, shopping, dining, recreation, transportation, all of those people make the travel experience here extraordinary. And that is what I think earns us the type of accolades that we have, is that the destination really delivers on its travel brand experience.
I know going into this pandemic, excuse me, or early on, expectations were for a number of restaurant closures, particularly those that were not national chains, maybe with some projections as high as 40%. That didn't seem to happen. And actually, if I take a look at East Greenwich as an example, for every restaurant that closed, another one opened up. What's been the experience in Newport?
I think that it was a challenging year for a lot of different reasons. Number one, the J-1 visa employees couldn't get here. Restaurants specifically in that sector were very understaffed. Many restaurants had to either cut back the days of service or cut back the hours of service. A lot of employers were concerned about employee burnout. And so what the experience was many times is we had a lot of people here, but it was very hard to get a dining reservation. And our restaurants did the best they could to keep up with it, but it was unbalanced. There was more people to feed than there were employees to serve them. And so I think that my sense is that, hats off to the restaurant community who worked really hard, worked their to the bones, and they made it through. Some of them didn't make it through. Some of them, actually, we had 3 or 4 new restaurants open in Newport during the pandemic. But it is the biggest challenge, I think, were both labor and then also supply chain problems that also compounded that. And at the beginning of the year, I think there was a consumer patience. You heard the stories of generous tipping and all that kind of thing. That, I think, got as time went on, and here we are today at the end of 2021. I think people are hoping that, geez, can we get by this? Because I do think that there's a hope and an expectation that there'll be better service, better opportunities. But the labor market is complicated. It's not something that any of us can solve in one sentence, for sure.
Is there any plan or any way that these restaurants are adjusting or attracting more people for employment?
Well, there's two parts to that. Sure. Thank you for teeing that up for me that way. Number one, obviously the market's had to readjust its pay scale. And so employers have had to significantly up their pay scale in all the various different sectors of hospitality. The second thing that people are looking at is transportation to and from work, and also housing, affordable housing. And so as those were all really significant challenges for us this past year, they've become even more compounded. And it's definitely something that the industry and all of its partners are working on now to line up valued partners, because they're going to continue to need to keep every employee they have, and they're going to need to really kind of pull out every stop to try to keep the employee base that they have.
Is winter normally a more difficult time for employees, since if there are those that come from out of state, they're back home, I guess, or is this because we don't have as many tourists during the winter months? Is this an easier time?
Well, it's historically a time when people can take a break when they do their annual maintenance. A lot of people want to, do their touch up. A lot of things have heavy traffic, so they want to repaint or redo this or fix that. So January, February, March, oftentimes is a time to regroup and fix up, getting ready for the next peak travel season. Some people, not every business in the hospitality industry elects to stay open in winter. Others are ready and willing to do so. Obviously, there's less demand during those 3 months. But for a lot of people, it's just a much time needed break right now after working 6 months, without a break. This is a much needed time for them.
Jumping around just a little bit, I'm thinking about the festivals that operated at less than full capacity, music, folk and jazz. Do we have expectations that they'll return to full capacity, or is the new capacity being this reduced level?
Time will tell. The event organizers this past year, we didn't really get our events community off the ground until late June. So most of the events in the first half of the year were postponed or canceled. So as we got to the end of June, some of the larger events, the flower show, the tennis tournament, the music festivals all started to roll out with limited capacities and certain restrictions. I think the answer to that question lies in how impactful the Omicron variant is going to be, how deeply that's going to affect vaccinated and unvaccinated people. I think we're going to know that answer probably in the next 60 to 90 days. I certainly can say on behalf of industry partners, they are eager to try to return to a larger capacity. But right now, I think we go into a holding pattern, much the way we did last winter, to see what is the impact of this new strain of the variant.
Are we expecting, since a lot of the early events actually were canceled last year, we're in a time frame that they're going to be returning? Anything that had been canceled last year will be, even if it's in a reduced level, would be back on the calendar?
So looking at the first quarter, decisions were made to cancel our Winter Festival in February because most of those events were large events indoors. And so the event organizer decided to pause for this year. It's too early to tell right now for the large St. Patrick's Day parade. That is, in March, been canceled for the last 2 years now. I think it will be interesting to see if we can get that off the ground in March. We're back to kind of a day-by-day medical analysis to see how this is spreading. And then, so forecasting these things is very tricky because you have to plan that they're going to happen. All these event organizers have to go through the various different checklists and checkpoints to get all of their events ready. And then they all reach a point where they reach a go, no-go point. They can't wait until a day before, a week before. Some of these big events need to know well in advance. And so my sense is that we learned a lot over the past year. I think that even if masking was required, even if showing proof of vaccination was required, my sense is that the event organizing community, which is a very broad community, is going to move forward. I've traveled to New York City twice in the last year and had my vaccination card with me, and I was carded, pretty much everywhere and anywhere I went. I went to a wedding, had to show my vaccination card. I thought to myself, wow, what if you went to a wedding and you didn't have your card? What was they going to kick you out? But it is best practices. It is for everyone's best health. And I think that people need to understand that we all have to do our part to chip in. But I know that people are so eager to resume some kind of normalcy in their lives and freedom in their lives. The pent up, I don't think that the human being is meant to be as pent up as we have been for the last 2 years. And it's really been hard for everybody, regardless of your situation or your scenario. You can feel the stress in everyone's voices and their persona. So I think travel and hospitality is one of the few outlets that gives us a chance to take a break from this awkward and bizarre time, and can give us just a sense of quick renewal or rejuvenation. And so I think that's why so many people have turned to travel and to hospitality to regain a sense of balance, frankly.
We had a couple of waterfront hotels that opened up this year. Are you aware of any other projects of that magnitude that are at least on the planning board now?
Nothing on the planning board right at the moment. We are excited that Save the Bay is going to move its marine aquarium from down at the beach over to the Gateway Transportation Center. They may not be in for summer of 22, but construction has started and the demolition has started in that building. So we are also very excited about the Sailing Hall of Fame coming to Newport. The Sailing Hall of Fame should open up this May or June of 22. That's going to be an enormous addition to the attractions community here. So most of the changes here in Newport are either attraction-based or event-based. Not much happening or percolating on the lodging side.
Discover Newport went through a bit of a transition last year. Are you comfortable where you're at now, or is there more transition anticipated?
The word I would use, Frank, is I'm grateful. We went from 16 full-time employees down to 4 at the fall of 2020. When we started off in January of 21, we were moving across the street from the Gateway Center here to our new offices in Long Wharf. We started off the year with 6 people. We are back to 11 full-time staff. I think we're about to add 12. So we are 2/3 of the way back to our original staffing level. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful that we are part of the travel industry that is making a recovery, because our friends in big cities are not sharing in the the recovery yet, and that's hard to watch. But we're just grateful that we're getting our market share, which allows us to rebuild our budget and hence bring back other employees.
How have the services changed, and how might they expand?
From a company standpoint, we, had the biggest shift in our work was we were operating a 7,000 square foot visitor center, which was chewing up a disproportional amount of our budget. And so our decision to downsize was based on a goal of operating a smaller visitor services operation and injecting more money into our primary core mission statement, which is sales and marketing. That's what our state mandate is. And so really over the last year, one of the biggest changes our organization made was we downsized our visitor services program and we upsized our sales and marketing program. And that, I think, has been absolutely the right move for us. And I think it's preparing us for a brighter and better future.
And much of those services now can be done online, and people don't have to be physically at a place.
Right. The Gateway Center was a brilliant idea 35 years ago. You have to remember there was no cell phones, there was no computers. It was, when it opened on June 18th, 1988, it was state of the art, the best visitor center in America. But over the last 30 plus years, there's been many changes in the travel industry, particularly due to technology. And with all the apps today and the GPSs for navigation, there's so much of the travel industry now has become electronic and technologically based. So that the need for a 7,000 square foot center really is obsolete. And so I think that while COVID forced our hand to do that, the handwriting was on the wall. It was going to happen someday. I believe it just got escalated because of the COVID challenge.
Evan, this comes from a reader who asked whether you see cultural tourism as a market to pursue.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
That's correct.
You said? Okay. So I believe that our tourism over the last 100 years has really been in many ways culturally based. We are a city of unmatched architecture. This city and island are an architectural textbook. And so whether you're looking at arts, architecture, music, so many reasons that people visit this destination are based on cultural aspects. And again, you have architecture is one of the leading ones. Music is one of the leading ones. The work that Newport Film does is amazing. Just the destination as a filming destination, but various different other aspects of dance and the progress that our dance companies have made and the progress that our other capacities, our art galleries and other people have made. Culture has always been part of the DNA of the destination, and I think it is very deep here, and it's great to see it even getting more diverse.
And the second part of the question, but I think that's pretty obvious, is how to attract this demographic, these individuals who are interested in the culture of the area.
The science of travel promotion has changed so much over the years, Frank. And I'm at the tail end of that because I started in this when I was 20 and I'm now in my 60s. So I've watched 40 years of change and all of that. Today's travel marketing is all done by data points. And so destination marketers know people's preferences based on your smartphone, based on your computers, based on your credit cards. We have the ability to really do very accurate pinpoint marketing based on consumer trends and consumer preferences. So the days of just casting an ad in a wide fishnet are pretty much limited now. And so the world of big data and crunching data and then saying to a computer, these are the names and people we want, and based on these attributes, and there they all are. Bingo.
From another reader comes the question of how important are short-term rentals to Newport's economy?
Short-term rentals, I'm going to start by framing it by saying over the last decade, we've really had three very significant national and international conversations about disruptors. Rideshare, Uber and Lyft are disruptors to taxis. Food trucks are disruptors to restaurants, and short-term rentals have been disruptors to the traditional lodging economy. What people need to understand is that 10 years ago, short-term rentals might have owned 1 to 3% of the market in terms of lodging. On Aquidneck Island, 10 years later, in 2021, short-term rentals owns about 35% of all rooms rented on Aquidneck Island are actually in short-term rentals. So in 10 years, they went from 1% to 35%. So there is a big upside for short-term rentals, and there are some challenges with short-term rentals. And so it's basically you have to look at and try to measure the various different benefits of short-term rentals, which are significant. And I don't want to spend too much time in the show going over that, but also how are communities going to manage these, regulate these, and to create a level playing field. And so there's a yin and a yang. There's a very positive and there's a challenge. I think Discover Newport's role in this debate is to help municipalities with data, to give them data to help make management decisions. I work with all the city councils, providing them with data on trends and actual performance of short-term rentals in the 9 towns that we promote. But this is a unique challenge, not only here in Newport, but virtually every city in the United States and every city in the world are going through the same municipal structure challenges and how to best set up policy that is, again, going to help regulate both the upside as well as the challenges. So short-term rentals are here. They're big. They're going to get bigger. And yet the municipalities, I think, are not yet found a spot where they're comfortable with how they're regulated yet. And I think that fine tuning is going to continue for the next couple of years.
I believe Lauren Carson is introducing or is talking about introducing legislation that would have the state would have registration of short-term rentals on some kind of a state registry. Which seems to make sense, I think.
Yeah, Rep. Carson's intention is trying to help identify a lot of these properties are not identified, and that's a problem for a lot of different reasons from municipalities to make sure, one, that they're paying taxes, but two, that they're complying with various different ordinances and mandates that towns and cities put forward. And so one of the big problems is that many municipalities don't have the bandwidth from a staffing standpoint to chase this market down. And I think that Rep. Carson's intention through her legislation is to mandate that all properties are registered so that they can be tracked. I think that's the gist of her bill.
She also mentioned, and I'm a little unclear of this also, some enabling legislation relative to three-wheeled vehicles in Newport. Are you familiar with that at all?
I've been I would call myself a student of watching this kind of bizarre behavior that we're starting to see across America of people riding all different kinds of vehicles on streets that many are licensed or appropriately used on these streets. And so whether they be 2 wheels, 3 wheels, or 4 wheels, there's all kinds of odd behavior happening there. I think Rep. Carson's bill is trying to hone in on particular businesses that actually perform rentals of three wheels, because they, I think you have to look at whether they're actually helping mobility, accessibility, and circulation, or whether they're hindering that. Block Island, for one, took significant measures to limit the number of rentals of powered vehicles, for lack of a better term, and I think Rep. Carson's bill is trying to follow the same thing based on safety, circulation, and the word I'm struggling for is that there's a certain amount of abuse and or non-compliance with following laws, and so there has to, I think her intent is to address all of those issues, make it better.
Evan, I have one final question. I certainly want to open up to anything that you think is important that we missed. What are you hearing about the Opera House in Newport?
A lot of people have put in a lot of time and effort. Kudos to all those people who have given of their time, their resources, whether they be financial or labor or otherwise. To answer your question, I haven't heard many updates during the COVID period. This has been a hard time for everybody in all the various different sectors, but I do not have an up-to-date scenario on that. But if you guys at What's Up Newp learn something, please share it with us.
Oh, we certainly will. Lynn Segley this morning, or noontime, we had her on, and she thought that she'd been under the impression that the Opera House was seeking additional state funding and looking for something like $5 million. We haven't talked to anybody there, so which we will for sure, and try to hone in on that as soon as we can.
You bring up a good topic. The state of Rhode Island has received all kinds of federal money to help with COVID mitigation and COVID recovery. Two of many grants have to do with travel and hospitality. One is an EDA grant, which is for $10.2 million. And that grant, my understanding of it is there are four sectors that can be applied to, that 10 million can be applied to. The first sector is advertising the state as a travel destination. The second is technology development for improving. Again, travel is marketed by technology today, by computers and cell phones and other things. The third bucket would be investing in new attractions and events. And the fourth bucket is improved transportation options and improving accessibility around the state. So that is, those are the four parts that Commerce RI has identified for the investment of that 10.2 million. But as of this morning, Commerce RI is still waiting for feedback from the EDA as to what can or what does or does not apply for these funds. So the funds are here in the state, and some people are asking, well, how do I get these? And there will be forthcoming information from Commerce about for average, the breakdown of that 10 million is they're targeting 3 million for advertising, 3.1 million for tech development, 3.7 for events and attractions, and 800,000 for transportation improvements. But a lot of people have been calling and saying, well, how do I apply for that? Once Commerce gets that direction from EDA, my understanding is that they'll put out information about how businesses would be potentially eligible to apply. I mentioned that there are two big buckets of money that came into the state. The other one that involves the travel industry is the American Rescue Plan. And the American Rescue Plan called for $13 million of aid to go into travel and hospitality. And the American Rescue Plan is sometimes called the Governor's Down Payment Plan, or that's how it becomes slang in the media. But that has $8 million earmarked for tourism, $3 million for grant awards to businesses that some of which we've just discussed, Frank, and another 2 million to go into airport marketing. So none of that money has been distributed yet. So you've got 10 and 13, $23 million heading into travel marketing and destination marketing. And everybody's eager to hear more about that. But the holdup in it right now is clarification from the federal government to the state government. So sometime in the near future, that pipeline is going to open, and two different grants, which together total $23 million, are going to do some significant assistance and promotion for the travel industry. But anyone who's listening to us should either contact Commerce or just be patient, because I do believe Commerce will, once they know the limitations on these things, that they will put out calls for action to receive proposals.
That 10.2 million, where does that come from? Is that a federal program?
Yeah, the EDA grant, the Economic Disaster Administration, Development Administration, is 10 million, and the 13 million is the American Rescue Plan.
Yeah. Very good. Evan, is there anything you want to add? Anything we've missed?
As I look back over the year, we talked about this a little bit. It's been absolutely a year of being upside down. And we had some peaks and we had some valleys. The valleys were the labor that we discussed, the ongoing debate about vaccination, which we still raging as a country, the consumer confidence being unsettled about whether to travel or not to travel. I think that I said this earlier, but given significant challenges and significant mountains to climb, I think it's nothing short of amazing that the travel and hospitality industry here performed as well as it did. And as I finish the year and I step back and I say, wow, I'm glad it's in the rearview mirror. The one thing I take away with me is how many professionals and passionate people hung in there and worked so hard to make their small business go. And I feel for those who decide to call it a day, but I also salute people who dug in and said, I'm not going to let this thing beat my business. And I'm just really proud of all of the people in the industry, the thousands of people and the thousands of owners, for making the best really bad year. We're gonna get better in 22. We're not going to really be back, fully until 23. And so next year is going to be more recovery. We had some recovery this year. And so we move on. We take 2 steps forward, we take 1 step back. And that's just been the way the year's been. But as I think the first thing I told you when we kicked off the show was, I'm just grateful that we're even still here, So that's my year in review, Frank.
That's great, Evan. I really appreciate it, and a lot of subjects this morning. And I guess one observation I have about those businesses that have survived, many of them went back to their roots when they thought about what it was that got them to start the business. It was their imagination, it was their determination, it was their tenacity, and their passion, and they put all those things together. And if they drew on those again during this period, they were going to do okay.
And they did. And, small businesses don't often make the media headlines the way Fortune 500 companies or other people do. But, all together, they make an army. And they make an army here in Newport. They make an army on Aquidneck Island. And they make an army statewide. And I think that the small business community should get a standing ovation for keeping our balance and keeping our community perspectives alive, because they could have easily cashed in early and they didn't. And I think they added so much to whether you are a resident, whether you work in a particular community, or whether you're visiting a community. small business contributions helped carry us through to this point, and Lord knows how much further we have to go. Did I ever envision that I'd be talking to you guys on the 2nd anniversary of this? No. Do I pray to God I'm not talking to you on the 3rd anniversary of this? I do. But it is what it is, and we all have to be safe. We all have to use common sense. We all have to do our part to try to find a better tomorrow. I mean, this is serious business, and so everybody does their part, and we do the best we can.
Evan Smith, thank you so much for a really great overview of where we've been and where we're going.
Well, again, I think it was an extraordinary year, and we have a lot to look forward to from our perspective. So, and just want to thank Ryan and What's Up Newp for all of your community support, helping us keep abreast of what's moving and shaking and trending in our community. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you to the team of reporters that you work with.
Thank you, Evan, and thanks for putting on a tie for us. We really appreciate it. We wish you, your staff, your family happy holidays.
Thank you, guys.
Is that Superman? You look like you were making a Superman move.
Yeah, well, I could do that too, but you know.
All right,
I was going to tell you, I got my pajama bottoms on below, but that's okay, you know.
That's all right. Evan Smith, Executive Director of Discover Newport. DiscoverNewport.org for all of the great information, whether you're a business or if you just want to know what's happening in town, not in just in town, in Newport County and Bristol counties. Frank, I got to run to another call, but I appreciate you setting up this conversation.
That was great. And both this afternoon with Lynn Segley and now with Evan Smith, a couple of good conversations, and really gave us a lot of updates on what's going on in the community.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you later.
Take care.
On behalf of Frank Prositz, myself, and all of us here at What's Up Newp, we thank Evan Smith for joining us today. If you missed any portion of the interview, you can catch it on whatsupnewp.com now.